There's a devil-may-care, Jack the Lad quality to Pete Dawson. Perpetually youthful and mischievous, the name and the personality lend themselves to Australian-like abbreviations of affection. He's Petey, Pedo, Dawsinski, always game for a laugh and up for a drink. Yet there's also a darker side. Pete's the type of bastard who doesn't just stop at stiffing a taxi driver. He has to throw loose change at the guy's feet and challenge him to a foot race. He's that special brand of golfer that hides behind an alias when winning the US Masters, calling himself Bubba Watson, bawling like a baby and hugging everyone in sight. And he's a fearless adventurer in the best Hillary tradition, eschewing road, rail and sky in the small matter of Christmas transportation, electing instead to navigate the choppy currents of the mighty Waikato sans life jacket, not to mention sense. Pete Dawson.
Good evening. So I recently discovered the joy of traversing large bodies of water in seafaring crafts of questionable quality, hence my title, Small Scale Maritime Misadventures. The motivation for this behaviour, I believe, stems from sibling rivalry. That's me and my brother vying for control of a large watermelon in the mid-80s. Note, I have the upper hand. But trying to outdo my brother as a game is particularly tricky considering he's the ultimate adventurer. Here he is, moving left to right with a large fish, piggybacking a dead pig, and lurking on an iceberg in Antarctica, which he visited when he was an engineer on a ship called the Lone Ranger, who was owned by American billionaire Peter Lewis, who actually rose to infamy in 1995, Lone Ranger, when Peter Lewis came for the America's Cup race and was busted with ganja. The next speaker, Dean Ballinger, also rose to infamy at about the same time when he mentioned Peter Lewis's name on his radio show, whilst he still had name suppression awaiting trial. Well done, Dean. So here's a great pic that my brother took departing Antarctica, going through the Drake Passage as 10-metre waves were breaking over her bow. I don't think he was too fussed. I think Peter Lewis had them all stoned, actually, and so I think they're having quite a good time. So as you can see, trying to outdo my brother is kind of tricky given the fact that he's done some pretty amazing things. So I thought I'd kick it off with traversing from Hamilton to Narrawahia on Christmas Eve 2010 in a inflatable raft that I bought from Kmart for the princely sum of $19.95, marked down from $25. It's an amazing craft. It came with 8 different languages on how to inflate, none of which were English. The small print said for pool use only, and supposedly it was for 2 people, unless of course you're a leprechaun and a garden gnome, you wouldn't have fit it in. But I chose the right boat because I discovered there's quite a cult following around the world, judging by all these YouTube videos. I actually wrote on this guy's, I don't know if you can see it, hey, how about that Explorer 200? I can't wait for the Explorer 201 to come out. He never got back to me, but that doesn't matter. So here we go on the maiden voyage, leaving Berescourt, dropped off by my good friend Chris Pucky. I've got all the essential things that you'd take on a voyage, including some scroggin, a bottle of wine. There's some Auto House videos actually in that black bag. I'm talking about the ones you keep out back. I took some light reading too, a script, Hoping for Larry, written by talented Hamilton filmmaker Scott Granville, who's part of the Chasing Time production company along with Ben Woolen. The script, has currently, before the Film Commission, hopefully will be being produced in 2013. I'm ahead of time here, it's actually a bit of an awkward pause. So that's halfway to Narrawahia. That's me going beneath the Horatu Bridge, which I actually jumped off in '88. So I've taken a bottle of Chardonnay to have a little wee tip along the way. One of the problems I found with taking fluids on board in the Explorer 200 is that at some stage it's going to have to come out, and to get your body out of the boat is particularly tricky, but luckily the oars are unscrewable and hollow, and so you can, you've got yourself a makeshift catheter and you don't have to run the risk of impaling her gossamer fabric on the river edge debris. And so weird looks is what you get when you're in a small boat on the way to Narrawahia, which I actually eventually did in 4 hours, and this set the scene for my next adventure when I thought I'd travel to Port Waikato, where we were staying for New Year's last year. And now that I was a professional, having done one trip, put a little bit more planning into the next journey, drew a diagram, packed less booze, and did wear a life jacket, which for the kids out there, it's important. So that's me putting in at Tuakau. It was about 60 k's from Tuakau to Port Waikato, so I just basically doubled everything. Thought it would take about 6 hours. As you can see, the weather wasn't that flash, and in fact everything went pear-shaped from about there, because I discovered the water was so slow moving. I actually thought I was going backwards at one stage, and so I got out and dragged my boat across an island here to get into the river proper. The island was covered in bulls which had crapped everywhere. Actually, I still don't know how they got on the island. So so I managed to get onto the river, hopefully going to be a bit quicker travelling, which it wasn't. And this photo was taken probably about 6 k's into the journey, and I'd only travelled about 6 hours, and I only travelled about 3 k's. And so I'd made the painful decision that I'm going to have to ditch and drag my boat through questionable farmland to get to the main road to Port Waikato and hitch the rest of the way. Luckily I had GPS on my phone, so I was able to pick a spot to get out, which is kind of essential, because if you missed your timing, you'd be walking through farmland for quite a while. And so you can see the tension in my right foot gripping the edge of the boat there. But along the way, there's lots of interesting things to photograph, including old whitebaiting cribs. And here's one that's actually literally falling into the drink. And as I was taking a photo of this picture, I heard a voice say, "Are you okay, buddy?" And a guy in a rowboat had managed to sneak up behind me. He'd actually spotted me in his riverside house. Ralph of the River is his actual address. That's his house there. And he's got to be described as a genuine good bastard, because luckily for me, he was going to Port Waikato to pick up 2 scoops of chips for his supper later that day. So he invited me in to play 500 with his wife, and I sat around leaking water on their lounge floor, drinking cups of tea and eating homemade Christmas cake. Too much marzipan as I recall, but that's neither here nor there. So that's actually a photo of his house that I took prior to the other one with the magic of Pechakucha. We've reversed it. I actually thought it just looked like a cool place. And so, as luck would have it, the journey didn't quite pan out the way I hoped. But that's Ralph there, and that's actually us pulling into Port Waikato. And you'll note that he's not wearing a seatbelt, and neither was I at that stage, and we actually got pulled up by a cop. And instinctively, we both jumped out of the car at the same time, and when the cop said, "Why are you guys not wearing a seatbelt?" we replied, "Well, we're standing on the footpath." Chatting to you, officer, and he was good enough to let us slide. And so that's basically 2 minutes to midnight on New Year's Eve with talented Dot Eyes playing a set, and we're all dancing in the background there. There's actually a hole formed in the batch where we're staying. It got progressively bigger along the weekend, which would be a Pechakucha in itself. But so that's my Pechakucha, and if you've got a spare $20, couple day in lieu, I seriously suggest a maritime misadventure.
Thank you, Bubba. Well done creating the waterworks. To hell with the space theme, that was the best one of the night.